Leading Britain's Conversation with Julia Hartley-Brewer. Call 0845 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Julia Hartley-Brewer on LBC.
I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is LBC Leading Britain's Conversation. Coming up later in the show, we'll be talking about the NEC Nominate Facebook drinking game. 2 Britons have already died, but who's responsible? Also going to be talking about, a man whose British mother, is facing jail in Dubai. We're talking to her son live on the show later on. First up, though, of course, we've had a strike planned, a 48-hour strike on the London tubes, planned for some time. We had 48 hours of travel misery for millions of commuters last week, planned again to start at 9 o'clock tonight. This morning we heard that talks between the 2 unions, RMT and TSSA, and London Underground had been successful, and the strike tonight has been called off. We've just spoken in the last few minutes with Mike Brown, the managing director of London Underground. He says that there was genuine discussion. He's really pleased, and they've not caved. I'm joined now live in the studio here at LBC with the RMT leader Bob Crow, fresh from those talks, to find out what really happened. So, Bob, why is the strike called off?
The strike's suspended, and the reason why it's suspended is that the discussions that have taken place, particularly yesterday and this morning, led to a situation where we wanted to be. And we always said from the start, when people was asking about if there was an agreement, would RMT be vitriolic and one thing another? We're not vitriolic. This is not a full-blown victory in any stretch of imagination. What it is got back to where we wanted to be, and that was to discuss London Underground's concerns and for LUL to listen to our concerns without the atmosphere of them saying they're going to impose job losses, and without the atmosphere of us saying we're going to call a strike. So it's the position we want to be in. They make it absolutely clear. Just apply some common sense here. London Underground's the employer. They're the manager. They're management, and they're responsible for managing. We don't want to do their role. It's their job. And our job's to represent our members. And the fact of the matter is, London Underground at any time can put anything on the table for discussion. And we want to talk about things in discussion. They talk about modernisation, but we want modernised terms and conditions as well. We want less hours at work.
Don't we all?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we call a modernised condition. Why should we be working the same hours we was working years ago? So we want to see modernisation. We want to see more annual leave.
Hold on a minute. We went through 48 hours of absolute misery in London, and it didn't just affect London. We're now a national radio station. Anyone travelling to London for business, for work, people maybe having planned trips into London for the theatre, whatever, massively disruptive, massive misery for people. I had people texting me, tweeting me all for those 2 days saying how much money they'd lost on their business. People who work freelance, self-employed, 0 hours contract, couldn't get to work, didn't get paid. And now you're saying, well, now we're having a conversation, so everything's fine. What was said at that meeting this morning that could not have been said this time last week and saved us all that misery?
Well, I'll give you your due. You sound like every angry commuter.
I am an angry commuter.
But you sound like every single one of them rolled up into one. What was said this morning was quite clear. As of yesterday, the notification which they have to send to the Department of Employment, the 950 jobs that said was going, given 90 days notice for the clocks to start ticking. They've now put that on hold, and they've now put a process in place where it gives us a minimum of 6 weeks to talk properly without the threat that these jobs will start to be disappearing. People will start taking severance. That's been put on hold as well. And what we're trying to say, when we say about extra annual leave and less hours at work, what we're talking about is modernisation. It's just not all about technology. Modernisation's about everything that we do at the workplace. For example, we want to listen to what London Underground's concerns are. You can't tell me that every booking office on London Underground is the same. For example, do you want to close a booking office at Victoria? Do you want to close a booking office at King's Cross? They are stalled already. People jump off trains, on high-speed trains from France and from Belgium, and then queue up 20 minutes already for a booking office. So what could have been said, Julia, before last week's strike was what was said this morning. Unfortunately, That wasn't said.
Can I just say that all last week and for weeks on, the RMT and the TSSA have been telling us, you personally saying to us, this isn't about money, this isn't about air conditions, this is about safety for passengers. All you've talked about so far is we want to work fewer hours at work and have more annual leave.
No, not as a result of this. What we're trying to say is...
We decided to just package that in while we had a gun to the heads of every London commuter.
No, we're not saying we want shorter hours as a result of looking at
Why did you brought it up, not me?
What I'm trying to say is that we're not going to sit back for the next decade or 15 years and say that whatever conditions we've got now stay the same. We want progress.
Tell me. Okay, let's just clarify. Given that you've brought this subject up, I thought we were going to be talking about safety issues, but you've brought up the paying conditions and the working hours of your members, the RMT. Average pay of an RMT member who works on the London Tube?
The average pay. I don't know the average pay because there's so many different
typical pay.
I would say the average pay, to be fair, Julia, from top to bottom would be around about 40,000. For
around about 40,000. Most of them work extra overtime.
Average,
45 to 50k in total. Is that right?
Well, no. I mean, you've got grades that earn in excess of 50,000. You've got some grades, the cleaners, for example.
Yeah, we're talking about the drivers. Okay, and tell me how much annual leave do they get a year that you want to improve?
Well, no, the annual leave is around about 6 weeks per year they get.
6 weeks annual leave. And how many hours a week do they normally
35.
work? They work 35. And you're... you know what, Bob? I don't mean to be disrespectful. I love it when you come into the show, but you're having a laugh, aren't you?
No, I'm not having a laugh. What I'm trying to say, Julie...
You are absolutely... I mean, is it April the 1st? Are you having a joke?
When I started working for London Underground in 1977, the hourly week was a 40-hour week. And we got then 3.5 weeks.
Can someone get my violin for me, please?
No, I'm trying to explain to you. When I started in 1977, the annual leave was 3.5 weeks a year, and the working week was 40 hours. What I'm trying to say is that we weren't going to stand still. It's our job to make progress. And don't think for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever conditions we've got now are going to stay the same as they are. What we're saying is not a result of these booking office discussions, but there will be a time when people keep on talking about modernisation. We want to see modernisation of our members' terms and conditions, which will be, and I make no excuse for it, our job is to try and get better terms and conditions.
But you know that modernisation on the tube will ultimately mean 0 hours and 52 weeks a year holiday, because you know that what Boris Johnson, the London Mayor, wants to do, and pretty much a lot of commuters now want as a result of strikes like last week's and the planned one this week, is they want to have driverless trains so that we are not held to ransom. Every now and then you decide you'd like another day off work.
There's not going to be driverless trains in London Underground. It's all nonsense. Would you be safe on a train in deep level tube, metres upon metres below the surface of London, with 800 people on there and the train breaking down? Would you want to be a pregnant lady on the train to try and get off? Would you want your mother? Would you want your sister? Would you want one of your children to be stuck in that train on a hot summer's day and they couldn't evacuate themselves? You see, the point is with these driverless trains, it sounds great, but the reality people say, well, Docklands Railway's driverless. It's true, it is driverless because it's above ground. And if the train breaks down, the emergency services can get to it. But they have a train captain on the Docklands train that when the train don't run properly, the train captain drives the train. What Boris Johnson is saying is there will be someone on the train. What's this person going to do? 8:15 in the morning, the train's packed. What's a train captain going to do when a train's stuck between two stations? He won't be able to go through the passengers because there'd be too many. So what we really should be talking about, this is a Victorian railway. Building a brand new railway, I accept there is the technology there to have driverless trains. But you're not going to have driverless trains on London Underground.
OK, but I was prepared to have a conversation with you today. At the time when we asked you to come in, of course, we had a strike planned starting around 9 o'clock tonight, another 48 hours of misery for commuters. And then the strike was called off by the TSSA and then also by the RMT, your union. We have been discussing this again and again on air, and you've been giving statements. I've looked at what's on the RMT website. At no point have you said it's anything other than about safety. And then you come in here and you're talking about you want to work fewer hours at work and have more annual leave. What has that got to do with people not being able to get to and from work last week?
Let's make it absolutely clear, Julia. What I said was that we will want to look at some stage, modernisation of our terms and conditions. If you look at modernisation of everything else, you can look at modernisation of our terms and conditions as well. This is not a demand and won't be a demand in this dispute we've got with London Underground. We will not be going to the talks over the assessment of booking offices and asking for less hours of work and more annual leave. That's an overall position. What we want to do is look at the merits and demerits of keeping these stations open. And also, let's have a look at some of these stations, for example. You know, a lot of people might think to themselves, instead of having parcels delivered to their home when they're not there, because they don't deliver to their workplace because they're too much to, lug around the place, why couldn't they be delivered, for example, to the booking office? It's nothing new, that concept.
Okay.
That's what booking offices used to do years ago. There's part of the goods that things could be delivered. So we want to look at, what is best for London Underground. So we're happy to look at the modernisation of London Underground. And now the gun's not at our head, then we can talk in a proper way.
OK, well, talking of guns to heads, you can get your calls into Bob Crow now if you want, 0845 6060 973. He's here to take your calls, not just listen to me as the angry commuter, 0845 6060 973. Bob, I have to put it to you now, and my lovely assistant is priming him right now with a lovely cocktail for you. Is part of the issue, Bob, given that just as this strike was, we were coming to the last one last week, we were in a situation where we discovered that you were on a £10,000 cruise round the coast of Brazil. We've just we thought we'd bring you some cocktails. Let's have a little bit of a clink here. I'm a bit worried that you might be missing. Well,
I'll see it's a virgin cocktail.
I'm getting a bit of background noise. We just thought that maybe one of the issues was you were missing that sort of nice feel of being on the holiday shores. Get the oil on the chest and
Can I assure you that the cocktails were far better than these ones? No disrespect to the young girl that made the cocktail. There's no alcohol in there, I see.
Do you normally drink at lunchtime?
If it's offered to me, yes.
Did that bring it back? Did that bring back the feel of being in Rio?
Not really, no. I mean, Rio was far better, to be honest with you. Lovely beach.
You didn't have me in Rio, though.
No.
Well, you had me texting you, didn't you?
Yeah, I haven't had any texting. But, the fact is, all this about the holiday. I mean, I don't drive a car, but if I spent £10,000 on driving a car, then what's the big deal? And by the way, it was my wife's 50th birthday. She's going to kill me when I tell her people know that she's 50. But if I had £20,000 to spend on her, I would have done, because she's worth every single penny.
She certainly is very to you, Bob. I'll let Bob carry on with his non-alcoholic cocktail. Pictures on our website, by the way, lbc.co.uk. We wanted to make him feel comfortable and at home. The strike tonight is off.
You've got the problem being non-alcoholic. It seems to me it must be your rules that not allowed to have an alcohol. You can tell them that I've got half a bottle of Malibu in here, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, bring the Malibu and the vodka in for Bob Crow. Bob Crow, the RMT leader, live in the studio. Calls already come in. If you want to ask him a question about those talks, you want to ask him about the tube and commuter misery, 0845 6060 973 is the number to call to have your say. Love to know how you were affected by the strikes. This is LBC. The time now is 2:16.
I'm J-Louise Knight in the LBC Travel Centre, and I've just spoken to Colin. He's heading out of town on the A40. The outside lane is currently blocked at the Savoy Circus traffic lights because of an accident. Looking on cameras, queues back to White City and the Northern Roundabout already. Finchley Road in Cricklewood is partly blocked by an accident at Ridge Road. Police are on the scene there directing traffic, and still lots of problems on the roads and the trains due to flooding. The A308 Windsor Road remains closed between the Runnymede Roundabout and Priest Hill in Old Windsor. The Chertsey Bridge is still closed as well, as is the A22. That's shut from the Whiteleaf roundabout up towards Purley. Trains not escaping the problems. No service from Staines to Windsor and Eton Riverside. And severe disruption to and from Paddington out towards Reading. Some good news though for the Underground, as we've been hearing, the strike that was due to start at 9:30 this evening has been called off. So all London Underground lines currently running with a good service. Keeping you moving. Your next travel updates in half an hour.
This is LBC. Julia Hartley-Brewer.
With the Financial Times. For those who value independent thought.
Life is ever-changing. We have kids, take out mortgages, we change careers, move away, stay together or drift apart. Changes in your personal circumstances could affect your life insurance policy. When was the last time you reviewed yours? At Crystal Financial Solutions, we work hard to find the lowest premiums, depending on where you are in life. For an initial free policy review, visit crystalfs.co.uk. That's crystalfs.co.uk.
Churchill!
Oh,
If you want your 80s mixtape on, I'll put your 80s mixtape on, okay? There! See? 80s mixtape on. Happy?
Oh, yes.
Honestly, you and your 80s obsession.
For an 80% good driver discount, chat to Churchill. Applies to new customers with 8+ years no claim discount for the first year. Minimum premium applies, excludes NI.
My name is Nadeem Shaukat. I bought a car from buytoletcars.com and they lease it on my behalf. I get a regular monthly income and I get a really great monthly return. It's really good knowing that my money's working for me. Because it is so good, that's one of the reasons why I've told everyone about it. I've even told my customers about it.
For an average 8 to 11% annual return, call buytoletcars.com on 0800 014 9228 or see buy2letcars.com.
Get ready for another title-defining Barclays Premier League fixture on BT Sport. Join us at the Emirates from 7 p.m. this Wednesday night as Arsenal take on the champions Manchester United. This is Arsenal's chance to show the competition they mean business. But do the Gunners have enough firepower? And can David Moyes keep Manchester United united? Find out exclusively live on BT Sport. £12 a month on the Sky digital satellite platform or free with BT Broadband.
UK residential customers only. Online requires 400 kilobits per second. BT Broadband for new customers from £10 a month plus $15.99 line rental. 12-month contract and terms apply. Sky platform requires 12-month contract, and if you don't have BT Broadband, a £15 activation fee.
Julia Hartley-Brewer on LBC.
This is LBC Leading Britain's Conversation. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, live in the studio now with RMT leader Bob Crow. If you're in London, oh yes, you'll know who Bob Crow is. If you're outside London, he is the trade union leader who's in charge of most of the drivers on London's Underground. We were set for a 48-hour strike, the second in a week, to start at 9 o'clock tonight this morning after talks between London Underground and the RMT and another union, TSSA. That has been called off. Many people, though, angry they had to go through the travel chaos that afflicted millions of commuters, not just those in London, many for miles and miles around as well, because of those tube strikes. So Bob is here to take your calls, your questions. 0845 6060 973 is the number to call to have your say, ask your question of Bob. Bob, let me just put it to you, after these calls have been the strike's been called off. The Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, your close pal, he said he's pleased the unions have agreed to call off their planned strike following talks with Transport for London. He says TfL's negotiators have been ready since November to discuss the detail around ticket office closures and wider modernisation of the tube, but it's welcome news. But again, he says, and Mike Brown, the MD of London Underground, they're saying, look, we've been ready to discuss this. Are they lying to us and they haven't been coming to the table having proper discussions, or are you lying to us?
Well, I can't speak for London Underground. All I can say is that it is true they have been wanting to speak to us since November, but after they issued a letter to say that 950 jobs were going, and there's 90 days notice, and after those 90 days, that's going to be your chips are up. And we're now in a situation where we should have been at the start by saying let's talk about the merits and demerits first of all of the stations, and then at the end of that process, if London Underground want to serve a notice, that's up to them, and we'll do what we can to defend our members. But we're now in a situation where we should have been in November, where we're at the pressure cooker all round, no gun to their head, they're not only putting no gun to our head, or we can sit down and apply some common sense about the future of London Underground.
You say no guns to heads, but what is the likelihood that we're going to have these talks? You're all going to sit down and have your tea and sandwiches, your beer and sandwiches, or your Malibu, as you say you like, and then we're going to be in exactly the same position again, because if TfL don't change their stance, if they say we are going to get rid of these 950 jobs in ticket offices on the tube, and you say we don't want you to, we're back to square one again, aren't we?
Well, it's how they apply these job losses. There's nothing unusual about job losses. They happen from time to time with all kinds of different industries that we deal with as well. It's the nature of how you handle it. But some of these people that work on the Underground, our members, have got nothing to do with the booking offices. They don't even work in the booking offices. They was working on the stations, for example, and they was told to reapply for their own jobs. Why should you reapply for your own job? There's only one reason why London Underground or any other company wants to reapply for your own job, because they're not certain whether they're going to give you the job in the future, and they want to sift certain people out because they don't like them.
Are they trying to get rid of people who were union activists?
I wouldn't say they're getting rid of people just because they're union activists, but, you know, you've got some strange breeders of management, not just in London Underground, but all over the shop now that we deal with, who say that because you disagree with a manager, I'm not talking about swearing at them or being rude, but just disagree, that they've got a personality problem. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, they're there to do a job.
God knows what they make of you or me.
Well, we'll never get a job on there, that's for sure. But one thing's for sure, these people were treated as heroes when the terrorist attacks took place. When those vicious terrorists took place on the Londoners a few years ago, it was these men and women, these brave men and women, in my view, that went down tunnels, evacuated people. They see the maimed, they help, they nurse, they keep people from going into panic. All of a sudden, they're just lazy people that work behind windows, which is not true. Go and sit on London Underground station. Sometimes an ordeal for a person just to get to work on the tube. They feel stressed just by using the tube. You be down there for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, 5 to 6 days on the trot, and see the stress that we have to deal with. And finally, the point we're trying to put over is London Underground's a successful industry. It's not in decline. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we want to be a part to support London Underground getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because it does a first-class job, and in my view, it's the best metro system in the world.
Last week I spoke to a lot of station staff from the London Tube who called in to discuss with the safety issues, and the message I got from them was that they were worried about the safety issues, as you say, about 950 station officer staff, ticket staff going, but they were also saying it's not safe now. They're already having to cover too many stations in one go. They haven't got the staff. If something goes horribly wrong, there is not enough staff to deal with it.
Well, number one, what you're talking about here is that, the amount of people using London Underground's increasing. That's for all the forecasters are saying that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. Next 5, 10, 15 years, more and more people are going to use London Underground. Now, the Mayor says that he wants to run service on a Friday and Saturday night. We're not opposed to that whatsoever, but we want to know, for example, if a shift finished at 2 o'clock in the morning or 2:30, how our members are going to get home. I want to expect them to be walking through the streets of London.
How do they get home now from a shift that finishes around midnight?
Midnight, and if they can get a train home, then they get a train home. But if a particular line was only running, say, to 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and we're not seeing what he intends doing, does it mean run through all the night, or is it going to be a sporadic service? We don't know.
Okay.
But it's a staff taxi, and the staff taxi gets them back to the station nearest to where they live. What we won't want, and we're not going to accept, is particularly our women members walking around the streets of London on their own at night.
OK, 0845 6060 973 is the number to call to put your question to Bob and make your point. Let's go to those calls. Richard's on the line. He's in West Yorkshire. Does the tube run that far, Richard?
It doesn't yet.
It's only a matter of time.
I'm hoping it will. Hi, Bob.
Hi there.
My name's Richard Bartlett. I live in West Yorkshire, Bradford, but I travel a lot to London, and I use the Underground and the buses, etc., to get from King's Cross to Borough. So I've already had a sort of 2.5 hours, 3 hours on the train, and then, to get there and find that you guys are on strike and girls are on strike is a bit of a nightmare, frankly. And what you were saying before, Bob, about, by the way, I'm glad you're having a drink and, get some vodka in it, that'd be great. But, 45, 50 grand a year, I know that's not all great, but, on average, I think that's probably what it is. Good pension scheme, really good. There's not many left with good pension schemes. 35 hours a week. My God, I work 55, 60 hours a week, particularly with all the travel and, extra hours when I can't get round on the tube. They're on a good package. They're on a really good package. I'm not sure this is about safety. I think this is about terms and conditions. I know that's your job as a union leader to fight for members' terms and conditions, but there's a lot of people on a lot less money who work a lot harder, and you don't see them going on strike. So why should you?
Well, number one, do you want people on low pay and all those arduous conditions? Don't forget, if it wasn't for our members having the amount of annual leave they have or the shorter working week they've got, then there wouldn't be a lot more people as there are working in London Underground or anywhere else. I mean, you ain't got to be a genius to work out. If someone's working 50 hours a week and then work 35, someone's got to make the other 15 hours up, and that means taking on more workers off the dole queues to work. So, I mean, that's progress as far as I'm concerned. When new technology comes in, new technology shouldn't just mean getting rid of jobs. New technology should mean better for the travelling public, better for the industry, and also those workers that deliver the industry, better terms and conditions as well.
But it's not better for the British public, Bob, when it's not 50 hours they're doing. The standard working week, which you said earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, is 35 hours. Most people's is 37.5 to 39.5. Most people get 21 days a year. You lot are on sort of 30 a year. So and you're paid a bit more. quite a bit more in some cases than a lot of working people. So why, I asked the question, why should people who are paid well with a good pension, with long holidays, be allowed to disrupt people who don't earn as much money and don't enjoy the same benefits? It's not fair, it's not right, and if London's going into the 22nd century as being one of the capitals of Europe, and frankly, you get off a good quality train in Japan or France, and you get on, with some of the quite surly, scruffily dressed station staff we've got here, by comparison, people judge us by our country and the state of its infrastructure.
Okay.
Don't
Richard, let's let Bob have his say. Bob?
Well, surely it's about joining the trade union and being an effective trade union. I mean, that's what a trade union is all about, is to make sure that, number one, a person who goes to work comes home from work in a safe fashion, uninjured, unarmed, and to get the best possible pay and conditions for its members. That's not to be arrogant to say that we couldn't care less about the travelling public. We rely upon the travelling public. If the travelling public didn't use London Underground, our members never had a job. So we want to provide a great service for the travelling public, an enhanced service for the travelling public. But surely, because someone is in a worse paid job, that we've all got to devalue ourselves to the worst paid job. Surely our job should be to lift everyone up to the very top.
You're getting lots of support on the phones as well as criticism. Tony Mahoney says, put Bob Crow in charge of the Environment Agency. He might do a far better job than the twits running it now. Do you fancy a job change?
Well, not really, no. I mean, I love the job I do. But I've got to say, at what's taking place down in the Thames at the moment, I think is absolutely scandalous. What will happen is that you get all these floods, like it did last year, and the floods will go away and the summer will come, and people will forget about the floods, and the floods are going to come back again next year. And it's all happened, in my view, because of lack of maintenance over the years. They failed to dredge the rivers properly. They could have put loads and loads of more trees, which would have sapped more water. They could have put walls up, defence regimes, but they've cut back, and they've cut back particularly in the Environment Agency, and they're trying to make out now it's everyone's fault. The fact is, it's global warming which is causing this problem.
Do you reckon you're going to pop down there and carry a few sandbags? Looks like you can handle yourself there.
Well, I've always said that, and I'm glad the army are down there now. Why have we got an army if we're not going to use them when there's not a war effort to help these people out in their time of misery?
OK, Bob Crow, that's the RMT leader, Bob Crow. He's live in the studio here at LBC, leading Britain's conversation. You can call him, put your point to him. If you went through the traffic misery last week and your transport problems, you can give him a call. If, however, you're one of his big supporters, and lots of people on the line say they very much support Bob, we'll get to those calls. He's looking forward to those ones. 0845 6060 973 is also the number to call. Coming up later, we're going to talk about the Neck Nominate Facebook drinking game and plenty more besides. LBC News Time now, it's 2:30. And here with the latest news headlines, it's Simon Conway.
A 48-hour strike on the London Underground due to start tonight has been called off. Unions have made a deal with management over ticket office closures and job losses. Julia has been speaking to RMT union leader Bob Crow.
This is not a full-blown victory in any stretch of imagination. What it is got back to where we want it to be, to discuss London Underground's concerns and for LUL to listen to our concerns without the atmosphere of them saying they're going to impose job losses and without the atmosphere of us saying we're going to call a strike.
David Cameron is telling LBC the government will spend whatever is needed to help those who've been affected by flooding. The Prime Minister's been visiting people in the southwest of England. More than 1,500 members of the armed forces have been put on standby to help communities. A mother and her boyfriend are being held on suspicion of manslaughter after an 11-month-old girl was mauled to death by a dog. Ava Corliss died in Blackburn last night after being attacked in a bed. One of the most famous child stars of all time, Shirley Temple, has died at the age of 85. She passed away yesterday at home in California, surrounded by her family. The weather, sunny spells and scattered showers across the UK this afternoon, remaining breezy with further showers for some this evening, and another stormy day tomorrow, particularly in the south and the west. Highs today of 7 degrees. LBC News Time, it's 2:32.
This is LBC. Julia Hartley-Brewer.
With the Financial Times. Your trusted guide, whatever the political climate.
Do you know what that sound is? That's your new digital marketing department. And that'll be your new web designer. And that's Haibu, where these experts are joined by plenty more, from web designers to search marketing specialists who work hard to get your business noticed online and on mobile. Best of all, Haibu can do it all for you, or give you the tools to do it yourself. To find out more, go to haibu.co.uk. That's hibu.co.uk. Or call 0800 777 433. Oh, that'll be your next new customer. Hibu, made for business.
Today, Claire volunteered to pick up her son and his friends from school. What a generous soul. What she hadn't bargained for was the ticking time bombs of snot all around her. Tick, tick, tick. Sneeze carnage. By the time she'd dropped everyone home, her car looked like the victim of a raging gang of snails. If only she'd had a box of Kleenex, she could have mopped up those school nose runs into a tissue. Where's your Kleenex when you need it?
Churchill! Churchill! Churchill!
Oh,
If you want your 80s mixtape on, I'll put your 80s mixtape on, okay? There! See? 80s mixtape on. Happy?
Oh, yes.
Honestly, you and your 80s obsession.
For an 80% good driver discount, chat to Churchill. Applies to new customers with 8+ years no claim discount for the first year. Minimum premium applies, excludes NI.
Hi, I'm Chris Hughes. I sold my company for a pretty decent sum, but low interest rates and inflation gradually eroded my capital.
Chris contacted buytoletcars.com.
It's a simple idea. Buy a car from them and then they just lease it out for you. I now own a fleet of cars, get an average return of 11% per year. The assets give me security and peace of mind. And I've got to say the monthly income is very handy indeed.
For an average 8 to 11% annual return, see buytoletcars.com or call 0800 014 9228.
Julia Hartley-Brewer on LBC.
I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation. We're leading it right now with Bob Crow, the leader of the RMT union. The strike tonight, the 48 hours of misery we were yet to have in London, that's been called off after talks between the two unions, the RMT and the TSSA, and London Underground this morning. Many of us wondering why we had to go through the misery of 48 hours of traffic disruption and travel disruption last week just to get to this point. But Bob Crow is live in the studio to take your calls and your thoughts. 0845 6060 973 is the number to call. Let's go straight to those calls. Jan is in Camden. Hello, Jan. What do you want to say?
Hello, Julia, and hello, Bob. First-time callers, so forgive me if I sound a bit nervous.
You sound just fine. You sound like more professional than us, frankly, Jan. What do you want to say?
Thank you so much, Julia. No, I'm just ringing in with support for Bob. I live in Camden, use King's Cross backwards and forwards all the time through St Pancras, and I absolutely recognise the picture he paints of all the tourists queuing for 2 windows when I think there's probably 3 that are not manned, and they're with their suitcases, and I look at it and I think, God, what do they think of us? If this is their first impression of us, what on earth do they think of us? And I can't imagine how it's going to be improved by the loss of 1,000 jobs. I've even had tourists queuing up behind me when they get confused between the King's Cross Overground and King's Cross Underground.
I still do that, and I've lived in London for years. Jan, are you offering your support to Bob? Bob, there are lots of people who feel the same way. But am I right in thinking they weren't going to close the ticket offices in the major stations used by tourists, were they?
Oh, yes, they was. I mean, they was going to close every single ticket office down. What they said was they would look at some kind of form of offices where they could tell the travelling public where to go. But, I mean, none of that was put in writing.
You told the travelling public where to go last week, didn't you?
Well, we had to. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to sit back and do nothing and watch your life run away from you. I mean, certainly at the end of the day, if there's an injustice out there, then you need to do something about it. I'd rather go through the wrath of those people that want to criticise us and then in the future find out that if there is another terrorist attack, which none of us want, because we all use the underground, our friends and loved ones use the underground, that these people will become to the help and assistance of the travelling public to make sure that London Underground is adequately staffed. So I think I pay tribute to my members who stood firm last week, and as a result of that, got London Underground to start talking properly.
What about the members who didn't stand fast last week? Only 30% of the trade union actually voted for a strike. Many others didn't even bother to vote. What do you think of the people who were branded scabs for crossing the picket line?
Well, if they go across the picket line, they are a scab. But secondly, why didn't they ballot all London Underground passengers to see if they wanted the booking offices kept open or not?
Scab's a nasty word. For people who are going to work to pay the bills, to look after their families and doing the job they're contracted to do. In a democratic country, they have the right not to strike. You have the right to strike. It's calling them scabs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible phrase to use, but the same token goes, what you've got is that these same people that go across picket lines, when there's a pay rise, which is achieved by the trade union, and members sacrifice to get it, if they're that much principle, they'll give the pay rise back.
Thought it wasn't about pay, mate.
No, but
this is it. You see, this is about safety, ticket offices, safety, and you keep bringing it back to pay and hours at work and annual leave.
But whatever the trade union wins as a result of a dispute, these people that go across picket lines, the so-called scabs that you talk about.
You talked about them as scabs.
Well, that's right. You raised the word about the scabs. I'm saying about these people that go across picket lines. They pick up the benefits, but they don't do the sacrifice. And if, they should be principled people who turn around and say, well, if I never went on strike to get something, then why should I achieve the victories from that dispute?
OK, let's go to another call. Phil's in Knightsbridge. Hi, Phil.
Hi there.
Hello, what do you want to say?
Just wondering what the difference is between strike action and blackmail, in Bob's opinion.
Bob?
Well, number one, they're both illegal, blackmail and striking. Even though we go on strike, it's still illegal. You haven't got the right to go on strike in this country. What you have got is the right to go on strike, basically, if there's been a ballot, but the trade union's protected from being sued for damages, and the workers can't be sacked for the first 12 weeks. But I don't think it's blackmail.
So something you don't agree with, you just hold London to ransom for?
Not at all, Phil. I mean, the reality is this. Management, we work for a company, like probably you do, I don't know if you own your own company or whatever. And the company turns around and says that, it wants to engage with its staff, bring them on board, which we're all for. But the company then turns around and says that, we're going to get rid of 1,000 jobs. Just like Henry Ford said years ago, you can have any colour car you want, so long as it's black. This is what we're going to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, you've got two options really in life. You put up with it, or you stand up and fight. Just like I've been told now.
Or the third option is to hold London to ransom.
Well, no, I mean,
how much did it cost London last week?
I don't know how much it cost London last week, Phil, but right the way through the
millions. The inconvenience for everybody, apart from everybody standing on the picket line.
Well, that demonstrates the fact, doesn't it, that how much our members are really worth then, because when they go on strike for 2 days, if it costs £100 million, so when they go to work for the next 2 days, they're really worth £100 million if it costs £100 million, so perhaps they should be paid more.
That's some interesting logic.
So your guys should be paid whatever the city's worth, is that right? At the end of the day, they're doing a service for the city, like the bus drivers, like the firemen,
I've got to
like
say,
the engineers, like the cab drivers, like everybody driving around London trying to make a living, and you hold everybody to ransom, stop everybody from working, costing the economy millions when it can ill afford it.
Not at all, Phil.
But you carry on. Yes, at all, definitely at all, because you hold the country to ransom.
Unfortunately, Phil, life's unfair. It's a jungle. It's not just out there. Because in my view, if life was fair, then the highest paid workers in this country would be nurses, then doctors and so on. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
So it's all about pay then, is it?
What about trade union leaders? What are they worth? I mean, fundamentally, if you weren't in your job, the country, the city would still run, Bob. So what are you worth?
Well, how much is a LBC reporter at 2:00 in the afternoon worth when I hold a show? How much is anyone worth? The fact is, my members determine what I earn at our annual general meeting. I don't get a vote on my wages; they vote.
Oh.
Well,
if you did get to have a say on your £145,000 pay and expenses package, would you vote for it to be less?
Well, let's get something straight.
Would you vote for it to be less, Bob?
When you quote someone's pay, a nurse, a doctor, a firefighter, you don't quote how much national insurance the employer pays or how much pension contributions. You try and harp it all up and make a personalised attack.
What is your pay then?
On myself.
What is your pay?
My pay is £87,000. That's what my pay is. The rest of it is regarding pension contributions from the employer, e.g. the union, and the question of national insurance contributions and all the add-ons that they have to pay. The reality is, at the end of the day, is that LBC don't determine its wages of its interviewers by what the people ring in and say how much you think Julia's worth or James is worth.
To a certain extent, the success of the radio station depends on how many callers we get, how many listeners we get, and therefore it is a factor.
But your wages are not published to the entire world.
I don't hold the country or the city to ransom every time I get a new contract.
We're the only private company, e.g. a union, not saying we're a private company, e.g., but we're the only part of society that has to declare all its wages online. No one else has to. Why don't the editors of the newspapers have their wages displayed. But the fact is, our members decide what I get paid, and if they decide to lower my pay, freeze my pay, or raise my pay, I take the decisions for my annual general meeting.
It's going to be Mrs. Crow who suffers when she doesn't get taken to Rio next year. Let's go to Maxime, who's on the line in Soho. Hello, Maxime.
Hi there. Hi, how are you?
Very well. What do you want to ask Bob?
Actually, it's just to discuss about what happened last week regarding the tube and the loss, really. And I don't know how long that's going to be. It's going to continue, but I think the problem is, affect really all the business and also the people who are living in London.
So did you lose money?
We did, yes, we did. Obviously, we were supposed to. We are a young restaurant who just opened, but we lost nearly £3,000.
What's the name of the restaurant, Maxime?
It's Blanchette in Soho.
Blanchette. And so basically, you're a new restaurant. You're relying on people being in town. Everyone tried to get home early because they were worried about how on earth they'd get home, or they didn't come into town. They worked from home, and you lost £3,000. Can you afford to lose £3,000?
No, I don't, because obviously I opened a month and a half ago, so we are a new company. And I opened with my brother, but obviously it's not only the money, it's also my staff. I was worried about it. It's they're obviously working long hours, and when you're working in hospitality, you finish very late, around 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., and they're due to back to work on the next day. And obviously, kitchen also, they are starting at 8 o'clock. So when they finish at midnight and they're due to come back to work at 8 a.m., it's very difficult for them. So
indeed. Maxime, can I just double check? Is the average pay around £45,000, 6 weeks annual leave and 35 hours a week for your staff?
Yeah, exactly. It's 35 hours a week, but in hospitality we do more. So
exactly. What's your question to Bob then, briefly?
So obviously, my question is when and how long that's gonna happen? Because I know it has been last week. It's going to be this week again. It will affect. I hope it will not affect the same like last week. But my question is, how long that strike is going to continue?
Well, no. The strike today has been called off, thank goodness. But Maxime, he's lost money, £3,000. There are many businesses, certainly small businesses, restaurants starting up at difficult time, can afford to lose £3,000 of income. Do you owe people like Maxime an apology?
Oh, absolutely, and I've apologised on a number of occasions. I do apologise, Maxime, for what's happened to your business last week. We've got no truck with you whatsoever, and really wish your business success. But sometimes in life, just like the film in Dodge City, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. And that's exactly what we have to do as a trade union. We have to live or die on our sword. And we have to defend our members. But we do apologise, and we hope, Maxine, that you're, as a result of London Underground growing and growing, it will get you more custom in the future.
OK, Bob Crow, thank you very much. More calls to Bob on 0845 6060 973 before 3 o'clock. Coming up also, we'll get an update on those floods from our reporter live in Rosebery in Berkshire. This is LBC and the time is 2:45.
I'm J-Louise Knight in the LBC Travel Centre, and long queues out of town to the east using the A40 this afternoon. Solid delays from the northern roundabout at White City to an accident just at the traffic lights at Savoy Circus, which is blocking one lane. Things have improved in Cricklewood though. The accident on Finchley Road at Ridge Road has now been cleared, so things are easing there. Lots going on due to flooding, I'm afraid. The A320 Chertsey lane is still shut from Staines to Chertsey. The A22 remains closed as well from Whiteleaf to Purley. Now, still major issues with the flooding on the trains. Southwest are suspended from Staines to Windsor and Eton Riverside. At Paddington, there's a reduced service to and from Reading. That's caused by the flooding, and disruption on southern train services from East Croydon to East Grinstead and Uckfield. Several cancellations and delays on the departure boards. And good news, as we've heard, the planned tube strike that was due to start this evening has been called off. Keeping you moving. Your next travel updates in half an hour.
This is LBC. Julia Hartley-Brewer
with the Financial Times for in-depth comment and analysis on UK business.
Darling, do you remember that man who used to be on the radio for Galliard Homes?
You mean the chairman of Galliard Homes, London's regeneration specialists?
Yes, they have a great new development, Royal Gateway, London E16. Looks like a phenomenal opportunity to invest in London.
With uninterrupted views of the river and the Royal Docks?
Stop it, darling. This is an all-private development. The apartments have superb specifications and excellent transport links with Canary Wharf and City Airport less than 7 minutes away.
What about Galliard's unbeatable value with one-bedroom apartments costing from under £250,000, potentially 20% less than the competition?
Darling?
Don't miss this exciting opportunity at our sales weekend on February 14th, 15th and 16th at the Crowne Plaza Hotel XL. Call 020 7620 1500 or visit galliardhomes.com. That's galliardhomes.com.
Main Street Vauxhall, how can I help?
It's about the course of Excite.
Yes.
I just think it's so unfair. Creating such a gorgeous-looking car without a thought as to how I could afford it.
Actually, it's just...
I expect you're all having a good laugh, aren't you? You people.
Hello?
The Vauxhall Corsa Excite. Available with up to 5 years 0% APR representative flexible finance, no deposit, and free insurance. You didn't think we'd make it so attractive without making it affordable too, did you? Visit your local Vauxhall retailer or vauxhall.co.uk/excite. Financed by Vauxhall Finance, subject to status, 18 or over. T's and C's apply. First year free insurance 21 to 75-year-olds. Underwritten by Ageas Insurance Limited. Terms and conditions apply.
Seizing opportunities, following your gut. That's what got your company to where it is today. But knowing the right time to sell your business may require a little more forethought than your gut can give. Barnes Rofe can help you identify the right time to sell and devise the best strategy to get your business there. See? Those clever accountants for business strike again. To discuss all your options with a Barnes Rofe partner, visit barnesrofe.com/radio.
Galliard's Royal Gateway Apartments, 5 minutes from Canary Wharf. Unrivaled specification and views. Unbeatable value from £250,000. Visit galliardhomes.com.
Julia Hartley-Brewer on LBC.
This is LBC London. No, it's not London. It's Leading Britain's Conversation. I knew I'd get one of those wrong today. We are, of course, national for the first time today in our 40-year history. Welcome to every new listener, and thanks for staying with us to everyone who's already been listening in the London area. We're live with Bob Crow, the RMT union leader, in the studio. 0845 6060 973 is the number to call. Lots of calls coming in. Bob's looking at them, quite pleased how positive a lot of them are, how supportive they are for him. He's, I think, quite surprised as well. Before we go back to your calls, we'll get to as many as we can before 3 o'clock. Let's get the latest on the floods with our reporter who's live in Wraysbury. That's Sam Thompson. Sam, what's the latest?
Well, I've just watched the military turning up in 4 or 5 rather large vehicles, and they are now going down Ouseley Road, which is one of the worst affected areas in Wraysbury. There's neighbourhoods down that road that are under 6 foot or so of water, and they're going in, they're knocking on doors, they're finding out who's still in the properties, telling people to evacuate.
Sam, in terms of the visits from politicians and bigwigs, how are they being received by the local people? I imagine they'd rather have people with sandbags than people with microphones.
Well, it's a rather divisive issue, really, because many people here feel like it's just too little too late. Earlier on, I was in Purley-on-Thames, where Ed Miliband was, of course, this morning, and I spoke to one flood warden there who was so incensed that he'd bothered to turn up to sort of with his whole entourage. He said about 60 people, getting in the way of the school run, not willing to roll up his sleeves and help out. Other people I've spoken to are pleased, though. They've told me that they're grateful that politicians have taken the time to come down. It's a show of action, and it could lead to some actual long-term solutions.
Did I hear you correctly? He brought an entourage of 60 people.
Well, that's what the people in Purley-on-Thames were claiming this morning. Now, I haven't got any official figures to verify that, but that is what I'm told this morning, that there were a large number of people who came to Purley-on-Thames and stayed for about 15 minutes, right in the middle of the school run.
That's exactly what you'd be looking for if your house was being flooded. And in terms of how it's looking right now and the predictions, we're getting predictions of more floods, more storms coming up. Is it due to get worse?
Absolutely. I think, this place can't really take much more rain. I was here a few weeks ago after the first round of flooding. This isn't really the first time that this has happened at all. The Jubilee River burst its banks semi-regularly, and the devastation left behind by January's floods was shocking, to say the least. People living in this area haven't been able to flush their toilets for weeks. People have already been evacuated from their homes for weeks, and it could be many more weeks before they're able to return.
Goodness me. Sam Thompson, thank you very much for joining us. He's LBC's reporter live in Wraysbury there. Sorry for the quality of that line. That's one of the problems of live radio, I'm afraid. We're back in the studio with Bob Crow, the RMT leader, taking your calls. Let's get straight to those calls. Sheila's in Leighton. Hi, Sheila. What do you want to say?
Hello, Julia. Hello, Bob. Bob, after the amazing success of the Olympics in London, How on earth can you justify what you've done? We've got change in the police force, we've got change in the health service, change in teaching. You name it. I go in a supermarket, I've got to use a machine. You know, I'm quite elderly. But can't you realise technology's moved on and we've got so many unemployed? People with 2 days a week. We've got students, graduates coming out of uni, they can't get a job. And you can justify this strike. I cannot understand you.
OK, what do you want to say?
I truly can't.
Well, the issue is, Jan, is that all those people coming out of university, we're trying to get them jobs. Because what's the point in going to university and going to school? Excuse me, Sheila. What's the point going to school and learn all those skills when they come out they ain't got a job to go to? But the fact of the matter is, you know, the issue regarding change for what? I mean, I'm totally opposed to this dehumanising of everything. When you ring up, all you speak to is a number. Press 1 for this, press 2 for this. When you go into a supermarket, you've got to use the self-checkouts and issues like that. That's fine. But people want to speak to humans as well. You know, if you're partially sighted, you need someone in the booking office to sell you a ticket. If you're disabled, you need someone to help you down the platform onto a train. And the fact is, we're all in favour of change, Sheila, but what we don't want is change just for the sake of it. Just shut up and down, full stop, without even thinking of what the consequences that's going to do to the London travelling public.
Can I say, when I had a little one and I'd had her in a buggy going on the tube, I not once did I get help from a member of tube staff to carry the buggy up and down, and I'd ask, and they said, no, we're not allowed to help.
Well, I'd probably run away from you, that's the reason why. But
you'd have helped me, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd have helped you.
Thank you very much. Ian's in Stratford. Hello, Ian. What do you want to say?
Hi, I just want a quick word with Bob, really. I'm actually a member of staff on the Underground, whose job is under threat. And, Bob, I just really want to know what it is. What are we going to be doing? I mean, at the moment, all I can see is we've put the strike off to negotiate.
I don't know where you work, Ian. I don't want to ask where you work, you know, for various reasons. I don't know if it's you work at Stratford or somewhere else, but nevertheless, what we're going to do, the negotiators now, we're just told on November the 21st that these 950 jobs were going, full stop. Nothing you can do about it. Now what's happened is that they've been put on hold. Everything's been put on hold. And the representatives at local level now, the negotiating team, will go through systematically every single booking office and say, well, what can be demonstrated to be kept open? What should be closed? What are you going to deal with those people if they can't find a job in the booking office? Are you to protect their rates of pay? What about the other groups of staff who've got to reapply for their own jobs? All that's been put on hold. So we want to go through and actually explain to London Underground it ain't just by cutting that you actually make things more efficient. Sometimes, you know, you actually increase the staffing so it increases the actual job content, and the people who actually use London Underground feel better that there's more actual staff there. So we're going to go through every single station line by line, and we want them to demonstrate why there's no necessity anymore for a booking office. What they will get away with as well, if they do away with these booking offices, at the moment, Ian, as you know yourself, if there's a problem on the platform, they call upon you to help. You're not going to be there. So when that buggy gets caught in the gates, when there's an incident of someone being drunk on the platform, where you can give the extra hand as a booking office clerk, if they get their proposals through, that won't happen. So what we've got now is a golden opportunity now, the next 6 weeks, under no threat whatsoever, is actually sit down and discuss with London Underground their future and what we want as job protection for our members.
Certainly what millions of Londoners would want. John's in Sidcup. What would you want to ask, John?
Oh, hello there, Julia. Hello, Bob.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Reference the strike you had last week. You were saying that it was the main reason you came out on strike was fundamental safety of the people using the Underground. Well, because of the strike last week and the increased number of vehicles on the roads, I saw an ambulance in the Edgware Road with his blue lights going and siren going, stuck in heavy traffic, could not move. Now, maybe there was somebody in that ambulance that was on his way to hospital, or it might have been on an emergency shout to someone's house because they've had a heart attack, and the ambulance couldn't get there because of the chaos that you caused.
OK, let's let Bob answer that. Bob?
Well, number one, I mean, none of us want that because that ambulance could have been for myself, yourself, one of your family. and just in general
Yeah, or one of your family.
That's what I said, one of my family, your family, or just in general terms.
But because of the strike, you caused that.
OK, let him answer.
Well, the same token goes, can I say to you, John, is that I could take you to places this afternoon around central London, and there's no strike on, and ambulances and fire brigade are still stuck in the traffic.
But there is a knock-on effect of when we have massive traffic problems in this city, and you and your members cause those problems.
Yeah. Well, we cause them jointly with London Underground. If London Underground never had said they're going to impose a 950 job loss against the people that work on London Underground, then we wouldn't have called a strike. So it takes two to tango. I mean, you can't make an omelette without cracking eggs, and unfortunately, that's what happens. But as a result of the strike last week, we're in a position now where we've got a tentative agreement, which will give us the opportunity to negotiate for the next 6 weeks. And I'll make it absolutely clear, we're not here to make ourselves popular. If London Underground impose again, we'll be calling further strikes.
Well, look, we certainly hope that works too. Just to avoid the avalanche of cliches coming there, last time you were here, Bob, you know I've got to mention this. We launched our Help Bob to Buy campaign. Now, you're, of course, living in a council property, a 3-bed council property with, despite your salary, you say £87,000. The papers keep saying £145,000. You're now under quite a lot of pressure from senior Tories like George Osborne and the party chairman, Grant Shapps, to relinquish your home. They want high earners to give up their homes to families who are more in need. Will this year, 2014, be the year that you buy your own home?
Well, no, I'm not going to buy the home I'm in. And secondly, the fact is, it's not...
No, don't buy the home you're in. That's a council property that needs to go to someone who needs it.
It's not a council property. It's been sold off to a housing association, which I opposed. The stock should have stayed with the borough concerned, but there was a vote, and unfortunately, we was in a minority, and that's been sold off to a private housing estate company. If they're going to throw me out the house, they're going to throw me out the house. But I'm not going without a fight. Simple as that. You throw me outside in the streets, I'll be the only person to be thrown out of somewhere for paying their rent.
The point is, though, you don't need that home, and someone else. There'll be thousands of people listening right now who are desperately in need of subsidised housing because of their being in dire financial straits.
What they should do is build more houses and get the builders back to work, and instead of having builders on the dole, have builders building houses and get people to live in them.
Bob, I hate ending on a point of agreement. Bob Crow, it is, against all of our better judgment, always a pleasure to have you in the studio. Bob Crow, the RMT leader. Wish you the best of luck with those talks. I think we all do. No strike tonight, at least that's good news. Coming up after the 3 o'clock news, though, we'll be talking about the NEC Nominate Facebook drinking game. 2 Brits have already died, but who's responsible for allowing it to go on Facebook? 0845 6060 973 is the number to call to have your say.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation.